I pursued law because that's one of the career paths that just seemed that expected to aim for one of the big law, medicine, engineering, those prestigious professions.
Welcome back to another episode of We Are Feel, #figuring it out. I hope you have had such an amazing time just catching up on our latest episode so far. As you can see, we are still on the trajectory of just having more guests come and share their wisdom. But before we even get started, please make sure that you subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to this via any of the podcast platforms, please make sure you hit on the notification bell. Follow us on we_r_feel. Awesome. So did I even introduce myself? My name is Mehaki Wamboi. My co-host is behind the camera. Just anapiga story kadhaa pale nyuma. But today I have a guest on set, a dear friend, and I'm so excited that he came on board to just share his experience on transitions, because that's what we are going to be talking about. So, hi, Lemuel.
Hey Rita.
How are you feeling?
I'm good. How
You're
are
good?
You?
I'm good. I'm so happy that you came through.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be part of FIO.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of what you guys have been doing.
Thank you.
And for today's conversation about transitions.
Yeah. So I hope you will stay tuned, because there are a lot of things and a lot of gems that you'll get from the episode. So I'm just going to introduce Lemuel so that you all know who he is, other than just a close friend of ours. So Lemuel Abishwa is currently being incubated as an entrepreneur in residence by Antler. If you don't know Antler, please start Googling. Product specialization, where he's working on fintech products. Prior to Antler, Lemuel worked at Sun Technologies as a product manager, helping to launch and scale community products across different markets in Africa. Besides Antler, Lemuel is also a product director at Africa Product Peers. This is a tech talent network and tech consulting company with a presence in Kenya and Nigeria. Ooh, a mouthful. So I hope you are tuned in for this amazing episode. So Lem, I think, I don't know, can I call you Lem? Because that's how I call you. Okay, so Lem, just to kick us off, I'd really like to just understand from you, who is Lemuel? And then we can get started.
Cool. I mean, Lemuel is many things. Right now, an entrepreneur, the background in many things, a combination of tech, from different startup roles, including being a product manager, being involved in operations, marketing, business development. Lemuel is passionate about social impact in Africa, and convicted that the way to achieve that impact is through technology, and employing technology solutions in different industries where we're solving problems ranging across financial inclusion through to education and unemployment. And so, with an academic background in law,
you're going to dive into that. I'm so curious.
That conviction made me want to explore what is going on in this exciting tech ecosystem. And so I made that pivot, and haven't looked back since.
So if you could, if there was a movie made about you, and you could name that movie, what would be the name of that movie?
That's a tough one. Many changes. Yeah, or pivot.
Yeah, that's a great title. It speaks to the episode.
Yep.
Just pivoting and changing and transitioning.
Transitioning.
All right. Just take me through how you grew up. Give us a little bit more context so that we're able to understand now what prompted you to get into things like law. So how you grew up, and now we can go towards the journey of you now picking up law and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting place to start. So I think some things to know about me. I grew up in a home that encouraged a lot of ambition and setting big, audacious goals. And yeah, so I pursued law because that's, one of the career paths that just seemed that, expected to aim for one of the big, law, medicine, engineering, those prestigious professions. Pursued it, and then the alternative was music. So I don't know if you know that about me, but yeah, at some point I considered a career in music.
Like being a musician or what? Because music has a lot of things, production and all of those things. So what exactly music?
A combination of things. So I when I was in high school, I was in a band.
No. This is brand new information.
And I got to, so we met through church. So I was in the worship team, and it was in a church where there's lots of really great musicians in Kenya. So I mention this because part of the decision to pursue law was also because of like the financial security that a career path in law offered compared to music. Because unfortunately in this region, musical industry hasn't really like rewarded excellence in the way it should. And so, just looking at some of the best musicians in the country, putting in work in a diligent, consistent way, and not seeing them getting rewarded in the way they should have been, made me feel like, okay, maybe this is meant to just be like a passion,
like a side thing
I do on the side, and so I think a combination of that aspiration to be financially secure, but then also in a career path that had impact, and a career path that also played a role in fostering change.
And was there someone you, like, given that you are thinking about, like, getting into law, is there a lawyer in your home? Is there, like, a lawyer maybe you
Not
knew
really.
and you were like, okay, I want to be that?
Yes. I mean, there's family that are in the legal profession, but I wouldn't say it was part of the decision making. So initially it started with when I was much younger, my sister would be the one who would say, I want to be a lawyer. And I would have other things I would say, and then I was like, okay, it seems like this law thing is resonating better with parents. So I was like, I'll say it, I'll say it, and then as I figure out what I want to do, this is my placeholder. And then I guess, that thing of like whatever you say manifests. So eventually I started thinking of myself as a lawyer. And then, I think as I was wrapping up high school and thinking a lot about like my aspirations for a career path and sort of like what is the decision-making criteria, affinity from like my skill set, being someone who was, I guess, exposed to like public speaking through responsibility at school and church. Also loved things like history and literature. So the affinity for it from like my background and skill set. And then what I was looking for in a career path, of course, you're looking for money, you're looking for impact, and something that would be intellectually stimulating and challenging. And so those are some of the things that inspired me to sort of like choose law. And then I just found this really incredible community when I joined Riara Law School. People who helped me shape the way I perceive the world, including the role that I want to play in it in terms of driving impact, some of the challenges. I think in that context, that was more from like an access to justice and like an advocacy perspective. But I usually say like the role of especially your undergrad is just to help you get a lens through which you see the world, right? And so it offered me a really, really helpful lens to sort of like have a critical perspective towards what are the problems in the world,
So would you say it's like the baseline or your foundation was it has to be something that helps you be part of impact or drive impact.
For sure.
And then if it's law, all good.
I think it was, at the beginning, I thought about impact from like the perspective of being an advocate for other people's interests.
Yeah.
But then I took a step back later on and I was like, the whole goal is impact, right? Whichever vehicle enables you to achieve that impact.
That's true.
That could change, you know.
Yeah.
And I think the like crystallization of that was during my final year. I did this program by Harvard Business School, and participants were from like a range of different academic backgrounds.
Yeah.
So it's me with my undergrad in law. There's someone else in the program who had studied literature. Is doctors, engineers,
Yeah.
and so we would have these. They use this case method at HBS, and so we would read in advance, and then we'd come to class and discuss the cases.
Yeah.
And so as you're discussing it, you're being told you're the protagonist in the case. You are the one who is making the decisions.
Yeah.
In this business case, this is where there's a problem that you're navigating. I found it so interesting how everyone has all these diverse perspectives towards how we can solve the problem.
Yeah.
It's not that one lens is better than any other.
Yeah.
It's a combination of everyone's perspectives that drives us towards solving the problem in a holistic way. And so I was like, okay, I want to lean more into that, like approach of like multidisciplinary ways of solving problems as more of like a generalist, because I was spending, my time building deep expertise into like one domain. And law is definitely a useful tool to solve problems, but in and of itself, you can't solve all the problems. You need to leverage a combination of different tools to solve problems.
Yeah, and I feel like I now know why you moved from law to get into product management. But from your perspective, knowing all that you knew at that time, having practiced at, for what I know, a prestigious firm in the country, why did you decide to move and then now I want to do product management? Even just start us off with what is product management and then why you decided to switch gears.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to unpack there. So one, I didn't know I wanted to pursue product management. So I graduated from law school and I knew I had options in terms of like the legal industry, but then I was like, I'm curious about the startup world. And so I said, let me take a year and give it a shot and see.
So give it a shot is do law, practice law.
No, work in startups.
Work in startups, okay.
Yeah, let me see what it's like to try my hand in building business acumen, working in a role that I felt, or a company that played a more central role in driving this impact that I was initially caring for when I was choosing this profession. And so, went in, got hired by...
So, sorry, I'm curious, what did you apply for as?
So that's the thing. So the company that hired me was set up by, the person who hired me was sort of like a management consultant who was in town for like 6 months. And so they were setting up like a sales and marketing function for the startup. And so the reason I mentioned that is because there's someone who had this like perspective towards hiring where they're like, you look smart, you'll figure it out, right? So they didn't care much for my academic background in law. They were just like, we're looking for smart people to help us with sales and marketing for this startup. So that's the first role I started in sales.
Yeah,
sales
I think that's the best thing about startups, that you don't need to be have studied a certain thing.
Right.
I think they look at what is the potential there, like futuristic thinking, which is
exactly.
really good.
Yeah, and I think especially in industries like management consulting, is an appreciation that whether your background is in food science or finance, as long as you have an aptitude for problem solving, you can figure things out.
Yeah, you can feel.
Come on.
Yeah. All right. That's interesting. So, if now you got into this role and now you started, is that where you started tinkering around with being now like managing a product?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So product, okay. So get into startups. Tried my hand at many different things. And again, at this point, I don't think I discovered the term product management until much later after like having joined a startup. The initial goal was just to be a generalist. But then I think during that journey, I realized that, okay, before I had this career path pretty much outlined for my like growth path. You're a law student in university, you go to Kenya School of Law. After Kenya School of Law, you do pupillage, associate, principal associate, senior associate, partner. It's super clear, in some cases even how many years it would take from one step to the next. But then you join startups and it's very abstract, right? So I started to now figure out how can I get more predictability in terms of like where the direction of my career is heading. And then while I wanted to be a generalist, can I be a generalist in a specific domain? Right? Because also the term generalist can be a bit uncertain depending on the context. Right?
Yeah, I think it can also be anxiety.
Exactly. You know, you're in one startup, you're adding value in many different ways. But then how do you package that value for another organization if you want to grow and transition for other opportunities? And so during this exploration, I came across product management, and then realized that I had actually been doing product management in my in certain roles. So basically, it's the intersection of user experience, the business goals, and technology in figuring out how do we create the right product that solves our customer's problem, that achieves a business goal using technology. And so my first instance of this was through working on a talent as a service product, where we matched talent that were alumni of ALA, ALU, ALX to executives across the world. And then sort of tried my hand in taking up a hypothesis-driven approach, which is how you navigate product management, in building that product and seeing it scale, and then transition into like now pure digital tech product development in the same organization, working on community products, platforms similar to LinkedIn that supported our talent pool in different ways.
I think just because I love how you've given us like the journey from just putting yourself out there, going into a startup, being like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know the baseline is me being able to work towards impact, regardless of like how it would look like and morph into. What I really want to just go back to is you saying that you are getting in as a generalist. Because I feel like sometimes when you go to a startup or like any company, say for example you studied something like, I don't know, Aki, something, these things that governments just force students to study in uni as you're trying to figure out yourself. Like when you go in there and then there's that fear, that anxiety of, will you find your fitting? Will you find, because now you're going there as a generalist. You can literally do anything. When did it click for you that it's important for me to be able to package myself? And then I know you later realized that there's product management, but how did you at the beginning put yourself in a way that you are gaining specific skills aligned to what you'd like to do like long term in terms of pursuing product management?
So I think it's a combination of two things. One, being intentional about mapping out what my future looked like. So for me, that means sort of roadmap of where do I see myself in the next 5 to 10 years, and a short list of different pathways that I'm aspiring to achieve.
So giving yourself options.
Yes.
Okay.
So for me, those pathways would be becoming an entrepreneur. Again, thinking about this context of really inspired by what's going on in our tech ecosystem in Africa. These guys are solving massive problems through private enterprise and leveraging digital innovations. I want to be a part of that. And so at some point, aspiring to become a founder as an entrepreneur, another pathway around entrepreneur support. So there are many different outfits on the continent that support entrepreneurs, including venture capital funds, venture studios, accelerators, incubators. Being a part of those kinds of institutions to support entrepreneurs is another pathway I was aspiring to. And then
at that young age, like when you were just kickstarting.
It's again, it's something you're looking forward to in, like, maybe the timeline, it depends. And even now, as I sit here, I know timelines move out, like I could be, if we spoke maybe a year ago, I would have been telling you about working in entrepreneur support maybe in the near term. Now could be much more longer term, especially I think my proximity to now being a founder gives me interest in sort of like deep diving more into that space. And I think you get to glean a lot of value by practicing being an entrepreneur and being a founder. And by practicing that, then it makes you a much better supporter of that kind of community.
So, I like how you say that.
And then the other pathway now, the third one for me was in terms of product. So product leadership. And so now working backwards, I knew that because I'm aspiring to these potential pathways, that there are different roles I would take on now, roles and responsibilities I could take on now that would contribute to either one of those pathways. So that's the first thing. And the second one is just talking to people. I would reach out to people on LinkedIn whose profiles I liked.
Like you just cold call, like cold text now in this context.
And I'd be like, I really like your profile. Seems like you've had an interesting career journey. I'd love to hop on a one-on-one. And I got to learn about the different ways people navigated their career and how they got to certain outcomes. Many profiles were aligned to the pathways I was aspiring to. Some weren't. Some were just like really cool, unique profiles. And ultimately, I found a lot of value in going back and forth between this is what I'm working towards, this is what I'm hearing from people in my network. How does this insight, how much of it is relevant to me and my journey, and how much isn't? Because also everyone's journey looks different. Right? So it's helpful to hear about what my journey looks like, what Rita's journey looks like. But that doesn't mean that you have to model your journey in exactly the same way.
Okay, I like that because you've talked about, you have like a 5 to 10 or like futuristic, I'm going to use this word forever, like what you'd like in the future, like in the upcoming 5 years. Then you kind of like have different pathways that you can follow to get to that ultimate outcome. Then you reach out to community and to people so that you can see how their journey looked like, in order for you to also like see how your journey would look like. So do you feel like what you did at that time was, in essence, preparing you for these transitions? Like, do you feel like that played a very big role in that, like you being able to move from one tech, from love to one tech company and now like pursuing entrepreneurship? Okay.
100%.
Yeah, because I feel like that in itself is like a checklist for how to prepare for transitions. But I'm also curious, when you decided, I'm not going to go the law way, my people have paid the school fees, but you know what? I'm just going to a tech company and then I'm going to be a generalist. Take me through you telling the people in your life that needed to know how did they react to you choosing to make that pivot or that change?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think there were mixed emotions, obviously. So, like, I graduated really well from law school.
Yeah, you had a first class.
The first class
Yeah.
honors. And so there's an expectation that obviously you're going to pursue practicing law and go to one of the law firms I worked at previously.
Yeah.
I think with my parents, there was an understanding that I had been intentional even in my university journey in figuring out my pathways.
Yeah.
And so this trust that was built that even as I'm making these decisions that he will figure it out.
Yeah.
I think it was actually harder with some of the lecturers from uni who I had sort of like a mentorship relationship with.
Yeah.
And also some of the like partners in some of the firms I'd worked at who I'd also built a relationship with because
like when you're interning and all
yes,
that.
yes.
Oh,
because they got invested obviously in my journey. And with that investment, you sort of feel accountable.
Yes.
So, and that's why I said it's important to hear about other people's journeys and look out for their advice, but not everything that they share with you is relevant to your journey. I think it was really important for me in that season to figure out how to compartmentalize.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
There's really solid advice that you're going to get from people who care for you, who want the best for you.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the day, you need to also take ownership of your own journey.
Yeah.
And know what seems aligned to what is relevant for your path.
Based on what they're communicating.
Based on what do you feel like. Trust your gut, be bold, take some risks, be audacious. Sometimes it will work out, sometimes it might not. I think either way, it's helpful to keep people involved in your journey. Tell them about it. Respectfully disagree sometimes. And like, I hear you, but I'm going to try this out in this way because I feel that's what's best for me. At the end of the day, the people who still care for you in your journey will still be around even for the twists and turns which they didn't vote for. So that's been the case for me. There are people who've still been really excited for me even as I've transitioned and are still a part of my journey.
Yeah, I think that's so wise. Like when you said compartmentalize, like you will tell your community and everyone wants what's best for you. They will not tell you don't do this because they're being malicious. They're trying to protect you.
Yeah.
But then you also love them, so you're like, I will compartmentalize and put this here and here. But you will also communicate that yes, I hear what you're saying, but this is what I'd like to pursue. And then the other thing I liked about what you said is, like, they will be with you in things they did vote for. They did not at all see coming. And I think that's why creating strong communities or having people who really support you 100% is important.
Yeah.
Because most people would vote out. They'd be like, nah, you're going into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You're leaving a fully paying, well-paying job. I'm not going that journey. Oh, okay. I've learned so much so far. Okay, I think the next thing that I'd like to tap into, because now you moved from, you went to the startup, you did all of the things that you did, and we got to work together. It was such a pleasure watching you and just being able to like collaborate.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking about the time when you are like, you know what? Now I am moving from doing this product thing in a corporate setup, and now I want to risk it because entrepreneurship is risky. Now I want to risk it and now venture into like being now an entrepreneur and joining Antler. Like, just take me through your thought process of now saying that now I want to do it. I think even before we get to doing it full time, when did you start exploring entrepreneurship? Is this what you're currently doing? Is this the first thing you founded? Take me through that journey from like when you were young and had an eye for I want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I think in terms of my entrepreneurship journey, I would say it's synonymous with like my leadership journey generally. And leadership is about combination of influence and like and creating value for the people around you. And so
let's pause there. Leadership is a combination of influence and creating value for people.
Yeah. And so in Campus, it was a really formative season for me in terms of like a combination of those things. And I got exposed to positions of leadership and responsibility that helped me build that muscle for one, how to establish that influence. In some cases that was political, so looking for votes.
This is in uni?
Yes. In other cases it was more soft power. So based off like relationships, based off I'm not, you're not directly reporting to me.
It's kind of like social capital.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then creating value as well. And so I think in that season, what I figured out is the creating value bit is in many times aligned to what I'm struggling with. So of course in Campus, you're trying to figure out your academics. You're trying to figure out your career. And so creating value in that case, that instance is, as I figure it out for myself, I help other people around me figure it out too. So creating value for people by helping them succeed academically through different initiatives, and then also professionally by, as I'm figuring out how do I break into big law in Kenya, creating an enabling environment so that the people around me can also discover some of those insights too. And then transitioned, and now in terms of other sort of entrepreneurial experiments, there's another business which is it's called so it's called Wingman. It's a business for men in relationships. So that's why I paused. So again, the context is, as I'm figuring out how to be a great partner, I realized that this is also a problem that many men grapple with. Like, how do you sustain a successful relationship? And then you build in that case, build a product strategy around love languages. So gifting, acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, you can't really help. But you get the point.
Yeah, I get the point.
So I figured out, okay, as I'm figuring out how to succeed in this space, creating value for other people around me by also helping to figure this out on behalf of like a broader community. And then figuring out how to create products in that context.
So it's like you were looking at what am I struggling with, then rather than what can solve my problem, it's like what can I create to solve my problem and other people's problems. So this started at a young age.
Yeah, this is like after uni. Started on that, got traction, got revenue, and was offered 3 angel checks. And then at that point is when I was like, okay, the love economy is an interesting industry, but is this where I would want to dedicate like 5 to 10 years of my life? especially now when you're being offered investment, now there's accountability that comes with it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't just take someone's money and then you run off and do your own thing. You have to now figure out, am I going to dedicate time to building out this business and helping it realize its full potential. And so I think that sparked within me now the interest in now figuring out, okay, where is that space where I want to dedicate the next 5 to 10 years since I've now got into this groove of figuring out how to create value and create products around that value.
Yeah.
And also inspire investors to rally around this vision.
Yeah.
And another part of that is Africa Product Peers. I don't want to get too much into that because of time.
Yeah.
But it's another example of, as I was figuring out my path in tech, this new transition, realizing that a lot of people around me who are grappling with the same things in terms of how do I succeed as a tech professional, and especially because there are a lot of support communities for engineers, but not so much for product managers and UX designers. And so we've created lots of products as well in that business, revenue generating too, where we've thought about, okay, how do we create value for people in this context? And again, it's just very relevant to me and the things that I've been thinking through in my journey.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really like. The fact that you are not looking to solve an external problem, you're looking to solve an internal, like a problem that is you're facing, and then solve it for other people, then package it as a product, and other people can now buy and use your product, and now you're earning from your solution to your problem. I think that's cool. That's pretty cool.
And it's the story of many entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I experienced this problem, and as I figured out how to solve it, I realized that, hey, this should be a problem that we solve for the whole the whole world in some cases.
Interesting. So even as you went through like all of these things that led you to now launch into being an entrepreneur, take me through, now you are like, you know what, now I can stop this corporate job, this paying job, like you know there's a monthly salary coming in, to be like, I'm going to just wing it, like take on Antler, which is such a big deal, and congratulations for being able to do that.
Thank you.
So why did you do it? And up to where you are now, was it worth it?
Yeah, I mean, why I did it is because I could take the risk. I think the initial, to be honest, intention was to probably try my hand at entrepreneurship a bit later. But then I felt like now is the best time to sort of like risk it, also because I've had a chance to experiment with all of these entrepreneurial experiments that we discussed. There was a lot of ripeness even in terms of helping to scale products across different markets, and having been a part of Santech's journey from, early stages of conceptualizing products until now we're seeing them scale. And so I think, sometimes I like this analogy from this experiment that's done with fleas. So they take fleas and they put them in a jar, and then when those fleas typically they can jump up to like 10 feet plus, some crazy stat, right? But then when you put them in a jar, in a cup, and you put a lid on top, and you leave it there for enough time, they'll only jump until the height of the cup, right? And so what that experiment speaks to is basically the idea that you stay too long in an environment and you form habits around that, then you sort of hold back your ability to realize your full potential. And so I think a lot of these skills that I was building, a lot of the leadership potential that I was building capacity for, I think runs the risk of being undermined if you stay too long in an environment that so take what you can from a space, learn, grow, and then I think transitions are really, really helpful in career advancement. Whether that's transitioning to another organization. In my case, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and so take the risk. Is it going to pan out?
We don't know.
Time will tell.
I
think also working in startups has given me this mindset of fail fast, fail forward.
Fail fast, fail forward.
Going through this process of understanding a problem, understanding a market, breathing life into a business to help it get off the ground, seeing how far that will go. That's a process that mostly doesn't work out for most entrepreneurs. That's a reality.
But did you feel like, was there like a time when you had a lot of anxiety, self-doubt, where you were like, maybe I shouldn't have done this? Did you experience anything like that? Like, what were your feelings around that?
I think entrepreneurs go through that every day. Anyone who tells you otherwise probably has a runway of like millions of dollars in the bank to
they have something to fall back on.
Right. I think it's the CEO of NVIDIA the other day who was talking about, he was asked if you could go back and start your entrepreneurial journey, what would you do differently? He said, I wouldn't do it. Because entrepreneurship is hard. But I think you just have to choose your hard. Even being an employee is hard. And
choose your hard.
And I think as you know your aspirations, for me, I knew entrepreneurship was it. So there's no better time to start than now. Try it, see where it goes. And Antler is one of the most, if not the most reputable VC in East Africa. They've helped to get off the ground lots of really great ventures like AIfluence, Honeycoin, Uncover, some brilliant entrepreneurship support. Our partners, Mel and Marie, really well respected in the ecosystem. Our program manager, Kosen, really brilliant. Entrepreneur support. I think going through this grappling with am I ready for entrepreneurship, but then also having support like that.
And seeing like organizations start like that. It
fosters the right encouragement to just give it a shot.
So choose your heart.
Choose your heart.
And this is the one you chose.
This is the one I chose.
All right. I just have like 2 more questions.
Go for it.
So how has your perception of success evolved throughout all these transitions?
Perception of success. I think perception of success now is more centered around insight. So what have we learned? So right now, what I'm working on at Antler is a fintech solution for churches. It's called Faith Foundry. And so right now what we're figuring out is monetization. So we've done lots of great research in terms of understanding the different problems and opportunities in the church space. Many opportunities to create products in that industry. The one that we're piloting now is creating value, among other ways, through creating additional revenues from donations. The thing that will determine whether this business will succeed is monetization. So historically, churches have been accustomed to getting value for free, right? It's like through volunteers and things like that. So will they pay for a product? And if they don't, can it be a business, or should it be another type of outfit?
Yeah.
Right? So creating the value, putting it out there, and then seeing whether people will pay for it. If they don't pay for it, that's not a failure. If they don't pay for it, that's insight.
Yeah.
And that insight will determine how we decide how to move forward with this business.
Yeah.
Because again, there are many opportunities and many in terms of like faith tech and church tech. There are very few entrepreneurs in the continent that have explored that space.
Yeah, I've actually never heard of faith tech.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So it has to be built.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to be part of the operators in the continent that's now exploring this space. But again, monetization is the insight we need to get.
Yeah.
So if you can't monetize it, then we need to figure out how we're going to get it off the ground in other ways.
So that is success for your business.
Yes. Insight.
What is success for Lemuel?
Growth.
Growth. I like that. All right. So just to wrap it up, we talk about figuring out things. It can be personal things. It can be professional things. But at your core, what are you currently figuring out at this time?
Figuring out how to replicate myself.
Replicate yourself.
Yeah.
Talk me through that.
Currently at Africa Product Peers, we're taking insight from like what we've done at Faith Foundry in terms of building products with no code. So
no code
solutions in AI are what we used to build our first product at Faith Foundry. And we have a really special community at APP of product managers and UX designers, among others, who work in tech, have proximity to the development of tech solutions, with product thinking, hypothesis-driven approach towards how do we solve the customer's problem, achieve a business goal using tech. The only thing is they are blocked by engineering dependencies. So you can sort of conceptualize what the product would look like and all of that, but then you just can't build it, right? And so in this era of tech, now we have a lot more no-code solutions that would allow you to actually build it yourself. And who better than the people who are involved in the development process, who think about how to build products in a structured, hypothesis-driven way. And especially now with a lot of the AI solutions that are coming up in the ecosystem because of companies like OpenAI. So that's what we used, that kind of thinking is what we used when we were building Faith Foundry's first product. And so when I say I'm thinking about how to replicate myself, thinking about how can I help other people in the ecosystem, in our community at APP, figure this out as well.
Awesome. How can you replicate yourself? Okay. And that, I don't want to say it's a wrap, but I've learned so much. Thank you for sharing your journey. I think it takes a lot of courage to do what you've done since, like, from the beginning, like taking up law and then choosing and being bold enough to even communicate with the people around you and tell them this is where you're going. I think it takes a lot of guts. And then being able to leave the organization, the corporate job, and then being able to launch yourself fully into entrepreneurship. I think that takes a lot of guts.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I can't wait to see where this goes and just get more exposure about faith tech or church tech. I have never heard of it.
Keep you posted.
But I really want to just follow your journey and see where that goes.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Rita.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you all for watching, listening, wherever you're listening from. I hope you have hit the notification bell. You've hit on subscribe if you're watching our lovely faces on YouTube. And we'd love to get your questions around Lem's transition. Just drop them in the comments and we'll be able to pass them through. But thank you for watching. We are Fio. Follow us on V_R_Fio. And we will see you on the next episode. Bye.